Welcome to the show. I'm Louie. I taught myself software engineering and landed myself a career working on multi-million and multi-billion dollar projects. And I'm applying the same system to game development to help you build and finish your games. Let's get started. So you don't become a real dev by thinking about it. You become one by finishing games. In this episode, we're going to talk about why finishing 8 games is so important in your first year. So why 8 games? It's not about just completing games or getting over the finish line. It's about building momentum, learning scope, learning polish, getting feedback. Building 8 games allows you to get familiar with the engine, get familiar with the process, get familiar with everything that you need to know for game dev, at least the basic version of it. So when I say you need to build 8 games, you don't technically need to build specifically 8 games. It's just the number I came up with when designing my roadmap. Why 8 games? Well, because the first 4 are tutorial based and the second 4, or the second half, the last 4, are 4 that you're building on your own. And there's no magic reason or magic number in the number 8, but it's a good amount of games to follow, to build, to learn from, to establish a strong game dev skill set. It's the same thing I did when learning software development. I built my tutorial projects, following tutorials, following instructions. And then I built about 6 games on my own and built a portfolio and used that to land a job. So whether you do 4 games or 6 games or 8 games or 10 games, it doesn't really matter. You just get that much more experience. The point of doing 8 games or an X amount of games, more than 1, 2, or 3, I'd say, the point is building the skill, building the knowledge of game dev process, and learning scope more over anything else. I think the largest killer for game devs is scope. Scope is something that you can't just read about, or you can't just watch other videos or play games to learn. It's something that you only learn by building games to completion. It's really the only way to do it, by getting your hands dirty, your feet wet. So the best way to do that is to start small and work your way up from 1 game to 8 games. Why I think 8 games is a good amount is because it allows you to do 4 games of tutorials and then 4 games of your own projects. And you can definitely build out 4 games of your own projects in 1 year when you build up in my system or using a similar system. And my system is, a brief outline is, 1 month you do a 1-month game, the next month you do another month game, the next month or the next 3 months you do a 3-month game, and then the next 6 months you do a 6-month game. And that leaves you with 11 months, and the 12th month, the first month you do would be the tutorial games. That is the framework of the 8-game system in 1 year. What changes? So what changes after doing game 1 or game 4 or game 8? Well, it's not just really about the technical issues, because you could learn all the technical details of game dev without building a single game. You can learn every mechanic out there, every line of code of C#, C++, it doesn't matter. You can learn all that, but you're still going to be missing key features, some of the most important things about building a game, which is scope creep. Finishing a project, putting the final touches on it, publishing a game, marketing a game. These are all things that you don't learn by just working on mechanics or just working on small features or learning how to build UI by itself or learning how to build a character by itself or learning the basics of coding. You don't learn that unless you actually build out games. And I know a lot of the talk on the internet or the advice out there is to build games, start small. Your first game is going to suck, build them outright, but that's good. But it's just a little incomplete. They don't really give you why you should build games. They just say you should build games to build games, to get started. But that's like telling someone to play basketball or shoot a basketball through a hoop to learn how to play basketball. It's like, okay, I can shoot basketball all I want. I could practice my jump shot all I want. But if I never play a game, when I finally do play a game, I'm going to be really bad at it. I'm not going to know how to dribble. I'm not going to know how team tactics work. I'm not going to know plays. I'm not going to know anything else about the game. So you don't learn any of those aspects of it unless you're actually scrimmaging, unless you're actually building game or unless you're actually playing games from start to finish, right? You need to scrimmage. You need to join tournaments. You need to make games. I mean, that's what it is. It's pretty basic, but it's something that I think a lot of people overlook, or they don't really understand why they're even saying to make games or why they think they should make games. So when it comes to building games, also from your first game to your 8th game, you're stacking on skills on top of each other, right? At first, you're just learning the basics. You're learning how to create a project, how to finish the project, how to add a few assets here and there in the middle, how to do some basic coding, some basic mechanics. And then you move up to the next game. You get better at it. You get faster at creating your character. You get better at creating the project, or you can make a repo without having to look it up, or you build your skill set. And then you get into more advanced features, your 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th game, 8th game, right? More advanced features, saving, maybe some online multiplayer if you want to adventure out that way. And then you're just building your skill set, but while staying in scope, because you can build your skill set out as much as you want, but if you're not sticking to deadlines and you're not actually completing games, it doesn't matter. Because in the end, if your goal is to make games, you have to make games, right? A player doesn't care about what games you are making until they can actually play it. You can make a game for 20 years, but if no one plays it, no one cares about it. There's a lot of hype, or there can be hype leading up to the game, but that hype fades. And the player just wants to play a game. And the goal is to get your game played by players, to get feedback. How you're going to feel throughout this journey of building 8 games is, at first, you're going to have a lot of high. You're going to be excited, but you're also going to have a lot of downs, a lot of lows, because you're going to be discovering cool things you can do, but then realizing how much you don't know. And that's scary. And then you're going to start building your own projects, and you're going to feel even worse. Not to discourage you, but because you're going to realize really how much you don't know and how many of the unknowns are out there. Like, you are going to follow tutorials to get started, and then when you stop following those tutorials, you're going to realize you don't know anything, really. But then halfway through, you're going to be feeling pretty good about yourself. You're going to be thinking, I can make projects. I could teach someone how to make a project, how to open up a project, right? How to add a character or a character controller, how to do win-lose scenarios, how to make a basic version of a complete game. And then you're going to start feeling really good when you put the final touches on your game towards the end, your last game, by making it look really nice, color theory, menus, sounds, all the final touches, all the little details that get overlooked, but that make a game really pop in the end and make it feel really smooth. When I said there's going to be times where you're feeling really low, you're going to do that probably every week, I think. I run into it all the time, and I did it with software development. I always ran into it when I hit a roadblock. When I was picking up really good momentum, really good speed, and then bam, I hit a wall because I ran into something that I thought should work, but didn't work. It was obvious that it should work, but for some reason it wasn't working. I focused on it for days, and then feeling pretty bad about it, right? You're feeling, why can't I figure this out? Pretty sure I covered everything. It should work. It makes sense. And then it hits you. Then you realize it's a simple mistake typically. It usually is a simple mistake. Whether it's in engine, you didn't check a box, you left some field blank, or it's some code where you miswrote a line, or some condition that was giving you the opposite effect or something. You're going to run into those all the time in game dev, all the time. You're going to have a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but just keep in mind, when you're in your lows, every mistake you hit or every roadblock you hit and you get past, you're learning, you're getting better, you're improving. You're probably not going to run into that again, and if you do, you know how to fix it. You're always improving. Even when you hit your lows, even when you hit your roadblocks, you're always improving. You will always improve as long as you stick with it. The only way to fail in game dev is to quit, is to start a new project, is to switch engines, is to look for the easy way out. And the easy way out always leads to not finishing games. Always. It always leads to not finishing games. It always leads to, I'm just going to start a new project. I'm just going to try a new engine because this engine's not working for me. It's always putting the blame on something else when really the blame should be put on yourself. And you don't even need to blame yourself. You just need to get through the issue, get through the problem. I've spoke about this next point in previous videos about how much time should you actually put into game development, right? If you're making 8 games a year, that seems like you have to put a ton of time in it, a ton, right? 8 games in a year. I hear developers on YouTube all the time say, it's going to take you 2 years just to make your first game. How am I going to make 8 games in 1 year? Like, that can't be possible. But it is. It's all goes back down to scope, right? And the easiest way to control your scope is to know how much time a day you can put into learning or building your game, right? If you have 1 month to build a game and that's your deadline, and you can only put 1 hour a day in, you have roughly 30 hours, right? Depending on the month, 30 hours to put into the game. You know your scope. You have to get your game done in 30 hours. Now, you don't necessarily know how long that is going to take you by feature-wise, how many features you can fit in a 30-hour period. That's something you learn as you grow. That's something you learn as you develop. But you have a time frame now, a window. So you have 30 hours, say, for example, and you're going to put 1 hour a day in. Well, maybe half the time you can fit 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day. Now, your scope, now you have crammed in more opportunity to fine tune things or fix bugs that you couldn't fix on time before, right? So what I would recommend, and it worked for me when learning software, is to put minimum of 1 hour a day in every single day, every single day. I don't care what you have to do, whether it's before work, after work, in the middle of the day. Even if you're exhausted, don't watch Netflix for an hour. Don't play games for an hour. Just get up 30 minutes early in the morning and stay up 30 minutes later at night. But put in at least 1 hour a day, every single day. And even then, 1 hour is barely meeting the requirements because it's going to take you 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes just to get spun up to where you left off the previous day. Maybe to open your engine. If you're using certain engines, Unreal, it might take a minute to open up just because it's such a large engine. But in a minimum of 1 hour a day, it'd be good if you could do at least 2 to 4 hours every single day. And we all have time to do it. We do. Once you get into it, once you start building your momentum, you'll realize how much you're enjoying it. You'll say, instead of spending 4 hours after work, 6 hours after work playing video games, well, you can take half that and put it towards game dev. And you're going to start wanting to do that. You're going to start getting home from work and thinking, I'm going to work on my game. I've been thinking about this feature all day long that I want to fix, and let's get to it, right? That 1 hour is not going to be inconvenient anymore. That's not enough time. I want to put 4 hours in today. And it will happen. You will start enjoying this. If you don't, I hope you do. But you will start wanting to spend more and more time the deeper you go into this. Now, if you're someone like me when I was learning software development, I was working full time. I had a wife and I had 2 children at the time. I now have 4 children, but at the time I had 2. I didn't program, I didn't code, I didn't learn while I was at work. I didn't do it after work because I wanted to spend time with the family. I waited until after we put our kids down for bed. I'd spend a little bit of time with the wife, have dinner, watch TV, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, closer to 30 minutes. And then I would go learn. I would learn for 1 to 4 hours, like pretty much every single night. It was like almost every single night. That discipline, that consistency allowed me to get to where I am today and allowed me to build skill sets that I didn't think I ever could have. And it's not that I was anything special or I did anything spectacular or I'm smarter than others. I'm not. It's just I put the time in. I did the consistency. And it changed me. Putting getting discipline and putting the time in really changes you, and you learn how to learn. You learn what works and doesn't work. And you can do the same thing to game dev. Game dev is no different from software development. It's no different. All the aspects of game dev are exactly identical to software dev. Some things change, but you have code that run the system, and you have user experience, UI, UX, right? How does it look for the player? How does it feel for the player? That's the exact same thing for software. You have software working, running the system, and you have user experience, UI, and UX. It's identical. Yes, building it out is different, but the core discipline, the design, is 100% identical to it. So it can be done for game dev. So the topic of this is, how does making 8 games change you? Well, if you can stick with it, if you can build the 8 games out in 1 year and 12 months, you will be a different person by your second year. At the end of your first year, you will look back and think, how did I do that? Like, how did I do that? You'll look at yourself completely different. You'll realize how easy it was. You just had to put the time into it. Now you're going to run into all kinds of issues and all kinds of headaches where you can't solve simple problems. But you're in luck. You have AI at your fingertips, right? When I was learning software, not to always bring it back to me, but when I was learning software, AI wasn't out yet. It hadn't come out yet. It was 2019, maybe I think I started software, maybe 2020. There was no ChatGPT yet or anything out. I had to learn everything myself. And when I ran into a roadblock, I had to look it up on Stack Overflow or some forums. And I had to solve it, find something similar to what I needed to get done and tweak it to fit my code. But now you have AI at your fingertips. You can give it errors. You can give it an idea of what you're trying to do. You can give it your code and it can spit out or correct or help you with it. Not saying you should rely on that, but any issues you run into, you should be able to solve. And every single day, AI gets better and better and better when it comes to game dev. It knows more and more and more about the engines. It knows the code almost perfectly now because it's just different. So how that changes you is, there is really no reason for you to quit or give up when it comes to learning game dev. You just need to put the time in, the discipline, right? It's all about how dedicated you are. When it comes to consistency, I also don't want you to worry about getting through or learning things too quickly. I ran into that myself. When it came to game dev, I wanted to rush. I wanted to skip making 2 games, 3 games, 10 games. I just wanted to make my flagship game, right? I thought I was something special. Not really. I just thought, well, I think I can do it. I think I have the skill set to do it. And I was just rushing past things that I shouldn't have been rushing. I should have been publishing more games and more often and building those skill sets out, and I just wasn't. And I don't want you to run into the same issue, because I think that's what a lot of people do, is they think they have this great idea, this great project, and that they can build it out and it's going to be amazing, and just the idea alone is going to bring people flooding in to wanting to play it. But that's just not going to happen. There are thousands of games getting released every single year on Steam, and it's really hard to stand out on there. And the only way really to stand out is by a strong marketing strategy, which we're not going to cover here, but also by smooth and polished mechanics and smooth and polished visuals. And that doesn't mean high definition visuals. That just means a good theme, and combining them together. But you can only really do that by building games out completely. Because like I said before, it's really hard to fine tune things when you don't build everything out completely. It just sounds like a broken record, but it's just true. It's until you build something to completion or close, and then you give it to someone to play, and then they play it and they find 100 things wrong with it because you didn't look at it the way they looked at it as a player, and then they give feedback. That's when you learn. That's when you realize, oh, I missed all these things that are so basic, but the player looked for it. Maybe not even intentionally, they just noticed it wasn't there. You don't get that by building mechanics and just showing the world your mechanics, but no one ever actually plays them. You don't get that by building visuals and showing the world your visuals, but it's not actually a playable game. It's just visuals. You need to build out games to completion to build the full skill set. And I know it's kind of scary, players playing your game, right? It's kind of scary thinking about, well, what if I play it and it breaks? That's my biggest fear, is someone pressing play, trying to play it, and they just can't complete the game because it just breaks. And then no one wants that. No one wants a game that just doesn't work. That's my biggest fear all the time. And it's normal. It's normal to have fear when making games or when people start to play them. But you just have to take it with a grain of salt. Just take it, as long as you respond positively. Like, how many games have we seen that started off terribly, but the developer stuck with it and then turned it into something great? I think of No Man's Sky every time of that, right? It was pretty bad, I think, when it first came out, but they stuck with it over the last, I don't know, 6+ years maybe. And it's grown a huge fan base and has extremely improved. And then you take games like Cyberpunk, that was completely broken when it came out also. I know these are bigger titles, but it was completely broken. But then they didn't really stick with it. They tried to make some patches, but they pretty much gave up on it. At least last I know of. I never actually played it, but from what I've heard, they pretty much gave up on it. And it's probably, going to just disappear into the ether. My point is, going back to progress, is as long as you're sticking with it and you're actually trying to improve, you shouldn't worry about the slow progress. You should intentionally start slow. That's why with my roadmap, if you haven't heard that, it's what I said at the beginning of the video, my roadmap, you start with tutorials. And then you work one game, a 1 month long project. It's going to be a tiny game. And then another month, and then a 3-month game, and then a 6-month game. You're building 8 small games, tiny games, 8. And you're thinking, when you get to the end of these games, you're going to realize how small they are just because of how much you have to fit into 1 month. You can't fit that much into it, or even 3 months. And you're building skills at the same time, but you're building real skills when you build out to completion. Real skills. So when you're going slow, if you can only put 1 hour a day in, that's fine. Do it. 1 hour a day, every day, that's 7 hours a week. Even work weekends, do it. Work weekends. That's 7 hours a week. That's way better than what the average game dev is doing, where they're spending half their week or 90% of the week playing Oblivion, playing, I don't even know what top games are anymore. What's the Starship Troopers game or clone? I don't know. I don't remember what it's called. But playing that, right? Helldivers 2, right? Playing that. Most game devs, you're going to be way ahead of them just for the fact that if you stick with 1 hour a day. Now, there's going to be other people that are putting 5 hours a day because they have nothing better to do. But that's great for them. They have that time. But if you can only put 1 hour a day, that's fine. And if you have a family and work, you can still put 1 hour a day. You can put 2 hours a day. You just have to cut things out of your life. You have to decide what's priority, what matters. So when it comes to 1 hour a day or slow progress is better than no progress. And when you're only putting 1 hour, or when you're only putting 1 day a week, that's basically no progress. Even if you're doing 6 hours, 12 hours in 1 day, you're not going to learn as good as if you were putting 1 hour each day. Doesn't matter if you put twice as much on Saturday, right? If you put 14 hours in 1 day compared to 7 hours, you put twice as much time in 1 week, just in 1 day. You're still going to learn better in the long run putting 1 hour a day in. You're going to retain it way more. So to finish this off, I'm just going to end with my example again of learning software development. I spent 1 year doing it. 1 year going from knowing zero web development. Zero. I didn't know how websites worked at all. I didn't know any HTML. I didn't come from a techie family. My parents are not computer people. I didn't know anything about HTML. Going from that to landing a professional software job in 1 year, just by grinding it out, by following courses. I bought one Udemy course, one, and I went through it in 1 year. And then I went through it again. So I spent however long it took me, I don't remember, a few months, month and a half, maybe 2, went through the whole Udemy course. And then I went through it again, but not completely. I went through it as reference, and I started building out my career, my portfolio of projects. And I built 6 projects for that portfolio. It was slow. It was long. I didn't know if it was going to work. I was pretty sure it was going to work. I had zero indication what I was doing was right. There wasn't a progress bar. I could test out my websites, but just because I built a website or I built 2 websites or 3 websites didn't mean I wasn't like, oh, recruiters were starting to talk to me. No, I even after building 6 projects, I didn't know if it was going to work, and it did work. And so I'm using this framework to help you because it will work for game dev, and it does work for game dev. This can be applied to game dev whether you want to go into game studios or whether you want to stick with indie and go solo or stay solo. Because when it comes to game studios, you are building out a portfolio of projects that you could hand over to them and show them, I can complete games. Doesn't matter if they're great games, but I can complete playable games. And then when it comes to indie, you just build out all the skill set, all of it, all these skills, and you can use them to build out your flagship game. Now remember, I wasn't anything special when doing this, and you don't have to be special either. You don't have to be an expert coder. I'm not the best coder. I'm not the best programmer. Even now as a professional software engineer, I'm not. I can get things done. I can find the solutions. There's way better people out there than me, and I'm always learning. You don't have to be the best programmer. You don't have to be the best artist. You don't have to be good at anything. You can start with 0 skills. But as long as you start and you stick with it, you will succeed. Some aspect of it, some version of it, you will be successful. You might not be the best game maker out there. You might not make a viral game. You might not make a series or a franchise, but you can be on a team that's successful. You can build somewhat of a successful career. You can build semi-successful games where you can live off of it. That is all possible. You just have to start and you have to stay consistent. Doing that and building out 8 games will change your life and will change how you learn. Thanks for showing up. Let's see you next time.